toward the One, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the messenger, the spirit of guidance.
So welcome to our 5th class in Becoming a Human Divine Being. We thought that this time we would give you all an overview of what we've done so far, and hopefully there'll be a synthesis of some of the things that you've been learning. So let's return to the idea of the imaginal world, the barzakh, the meeting place, in order to orient ourselves in the ideas we've been discussing. Recently we spoke of the planes of being for the sake of understanding the backdrop on which our manifestation has taken place. The idea of these is not to escape or feel that we must escape from the world of manifestation into higher, more refined realms, but really to be able to sense all of these happening in our being, sometimes through experiencing them one by one, but hopefully being able to see the world around us and notice glimpses of the other planes. And that is occasioned because we are hoping to inhabit the whole of our being, not just the part on which we usually focus in the manifest plane. And the dynamic, the fuel for the journey, has to do with the true imagination, we can call it, or the imaginal faculty that we talked about, even in the Zoroastrian learnings that we did, that idea of Sventar Maitik, or the imagination was another time we used that term in discussing working with the desire that propels us through the journey. It's an important aspect. Also, in Ibn Arabi, that idea was called himma, and it was having a strong intention that could make a change even in the material world around us. That is operating in us right now, that desire, that himma, and that we are shaping into our imaginal faculty. It's in our perception of our needs and our loves, our feelings about this world and the beings in it. We learned that we were there at the beginning of the universe. Not only that, but we are becoming the partner of the divine in this magnificent experiment called creation, where God is the greatest desirer of all. And ishq, or longing, is the keynote of all of it. Now we learned that there had to be a gap in the creation in order to give room for a space to connect it all. We called it the barzakh. And you can see it like a mirror which reflects one side to the other. A place of meeting, but never totally identifying of one side with the other. So they reflect each other, but they don't weld to each other. That space is always there because the creation always continues. The Sufis of 1,000 years ago had a name for this. They called it the wise one's mirror. With it, we can unite the spirit and body, the soul and the manifest. We can find a wazifa and other practices through using this mirror and using it in order to reflect. You might think of meeting that wazifa and allowing it to circulate in our being. And the pull of that wazifa catalyzes our operating system to begin an alchemical process of reuniting the parts of our being, bringing spiritual aspects into manifestation and connecting manifestations to their sources. And here's something that Murshid Hazrat Inayat Khan said about this heart being like a mirror. It's the sensitiveness of the heart, he said, that gives it the mirror-like quality. When it is not awakened, it's like a closed book. This mirror is two-sided. Its two sides facing opposite ways, one facing within, the other without. And the secret of working with it is to close it from one side in order to make it take the reflection from the other. Once the heart is cleared from all its dust, it becomes an instrument of the living wireless telegraphy to receive the message from within or without. I love this, him speaking from the 1920s and using the most up-to-date technology that he knew about, which was the living wireless telegraphy. This wonderful idea. So this mirror has different functions. It can manifest things, it can bring things that are manifest in the Tao wheel idea. It's really a functioning of this mirror also, to really look in back of what is seen and see the purpose, the meaningfulness in it, the connection to the higher realms. It's an allowance of finding that multidimensionality in our being, to use that mirror. We look into the mirror, which is our heart, really, and see the realms of the angel, the treasury, the mystery in our meditation. And then we can change the world around us. We use it through the epiphany in the world around us. We become the human divine, allowing forces to work through us. No, as us, really, to act on the world we're currently creating. We affect the marriages of realms, transmutation of spirit to manifestation. We become bodies which have the capabilities of spirits, like the philosopher's stone in the alchemical process. That's the transformation that we're looking for in what we talk about as the human divine, or as the resurrection body. The way that we go about this has to do with our uniqueness. That's one reason we can't say, well, what exactly is this this faculty, imaginal faculty, which we're going to call it now, imaginal faculty. Can we tell me what the steps are? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Well, not really, because each one of us is so different. Each one of us has our different joys, our different ways that our heart is touched by the world, our different ways of manifesting that which the divine has given us. So we have some ideas, and we have some ways of learning it. We have our buddies. We have our ways of repeating this lesson, perhaps, and writing some things down, and then using our practices to get deeper. These are all different kinds of ways, but your own ways, especially of how to create and how to connect with the world, are all going to be different. We have a particular way to see what our world involves and who we are in the world and what we wish to manifest. And this has to do with the allegory of our soul. So I wrote a little something that has to do with the feeling of being in this process. With each breath, each beat of my heart, I am in union with the divine, transfiguring this form into the flesh of the new creation, providing for the divine a modality of experience, and knowing through my human divine being, making a vehicle for the divine to function, and creating an accommodation for my being to fulfill its purpose. What arises from my human divine being is a never-ending emergence of the unfolding of the purpose of it all. That's on the micro scale and the macro scale. We're speaking of that resonance of the process, again, like a mirror.
So, why do we go through all the components of this process? Why do we try to present a global overview of what's going on? The reason for that is, as we talked about before, along the way, there have to be some major shifts in our perspective, our vantage point, our way of relating to ourselves, and our way of relating to what it is that we're trying to discover and experience. And as Ravani Rob mentioned, this is all about an alchemical transformation, but it's not how we usually think of it at the start of a transformation. Just our end, our human end, is going to turn into something at the end of the process. And this is a real important shift to understand. It's really an alchemical transformation of our relationship between our human and divine aspects. The relationship itself is undergoing a transformation and an evolution. So thinking about the mirror, oftentimes the mystics have said that soul in a lot of ways is like a mirror that identifies with what's reflected upon it. So if we are identified in our manifest being as just being this body, that's what's reflected on the mirror of the soul. And so the soul believes that's me, I'm just this. And the soul comes to believe that it is just the experiences that we think that we are experiencing in physical manifestation. When we learn how to turn that mirror or turn our consciousness, so what is reflected is different. So let's say now we've learned how to shift our consciousness to become aware of our existence as an angelic being in that realm of uncreated light. Then the soul identifies with that, and the soul thinks, well, I am this angelic being. This is who I am. So in some ways, our soul needs to undergo its own quantum leap from a perspective of identifying just from what's on one side of the mirror. In other words, the experiences that we have in existence. Instead of just identifying with that, the soul can learn to identify with what's unfolding in this relationship between the two sides of the mirror. So just consider that for a moment. Imagine the difference between thinking you are what's reflected in a mirror just from one side, but imagine that this mirror is going in both directions, towards manifestation and towards the transcendent realms, and it's really reflecting what's on both sides, but typically consciousness is just focalized on one end or just the other end. But imagine the experience of the soul when it discovers that it can experience an integration of the relationship between the two sides. That's a huge turn. That's a huge awakening, we could say, of the soul. It's also a double-sided awakening. It's an awakening between our manifest existence, awakening to a much deeper reality of who we are as multi-dimensional beings. But we could also say it's awakening of the divine, discovering itself as being able to experience through the uniqueness of who we are in whatever realm that we are existing on and in whatever realm our consciousness is focalized in. So that's kind of the big picture of what's happening in this process. There's a dramatic transformation in the relationship between the human and divine sides of ourselves. There's an awakened capacity to experience ourselves as human-divine beings with both sides in relationship with each other, coming together in the barzakh, bringing forth the new creation that is the product of that imaginal faculty of the soul, and the divine side as well as the manifest side, not only participating in this process, but mutually discovering what arises from this process. So creation originally began, the Sufis say, because the divine was a hidden treasure desiring to to know and be known, to love and be loved. And that takes place through there being a manifestation that evolves to the point where manifest beings can engage in this relationship, and then the divine can discover itself through the experiences, through the wisdom gained in existence from the different parts. And there's this never-ending process of the divine discovering more of itself, not just as it is in a static sense, like it's just sitting there and it's waiting to discover it, but discovering itself as what's emergent, what hasn't yet been created, what is new, which is just as much a discovery for what we think of as the divine side as for our human side. So Rabbani Ra and I were talking about, well, what are some practices that we might suggest for you that you can take and work with?
And we're thinking on the long term for the whole of the rest of the classes.
And your life.
And your life.
So those of you who've been with us through the 12 previous classes, and now this is the 5th of this series, know that we've shared many, many practices, many, many divine names, many, many ways of working with light and sound and energy and so on. But this is a little something different. This is kind of getting right into the thick of things. And it's a practice I would encourage you to work with, and we're going to sample it tonight. But we hope that you will take this and continue to work with it, because this practice is really a key into discovering how to become capable of engaging in this process that we are trying to convey in what we're sharing with you. Okay. So we've talked before about Tawil, harmonic perception, engaging in a relationship with something where you are seeing, as Pir Balayat would say, that which transpires behind that which appears, or in the past it was described as discovering the archetypal reality behind the surface appearance of something. And that's all true, but we're going to look at it in an even deeper way than that. We've talked many, many times about relational unity. And just as a reminder, relational unity is engaging in a relationship with something that you're experiencing in which you are not separated in a dualistic sense. You're not sitting over here going, well, I'm looking at, let's say, a rose. I am thinking about the rose. I am smelling the rose. I am feeling the rose. I'm engaging in memories about roses in general, or what I've learned about roses. Not that kind of relationship. This is a relationship in which there is a permeability and there is a circulation between the two sides, in which that which you're experiencing can reveal itself to you. And we've talked before how everything in existence is seeking to reveal its divine nature.
And for you, in the Christian tradition, it's like a moment of the Annunciation of Gabriel announcing him herself to you.
Yes, and in that sense, we can say everything is Gabriel, and everything has a passion, an ish, a longing to reveal itself, to reveal that unique way divinity is expressed through that. So, and there's another side of this, which would be a later stage of this practice, about what's happening on your end and you revealing your divine nature. But we're just going to be focused on the side of that which you're experiencing, revealing its divine nature to you. So there's two ways that you can work with this practice. And the first would be to sit with something in nature, and a rose would be something wonderful. It could be a crystal. It should be something that's a natural object. It could be a mineral or a plant, and it's a lot easier to do if it's still, and like the rose isn't, you're not outside, it's not blowing all over, so you can just really focus your attention initially with your eyes open, let's say if it's a rose, and you want to get into a state of receptive openness. So in other words, you want to just be with that rose, and at first there'll be thoughts going through like, oh, it's beautiful, it's red, it smells so wonderful, it's so soft, and just let all of that go by, and just let your intention be, I would like to engage in a state of relational unity with this rose, so I can allow it to reveal its deeper divine nature to me without any expectation of what that's supposed to be like. And you're probably listening to this indoors right now, and you probably don't have a rose right in front of you, but you can imagine one. So I'd like you to close your eyes and imagine that you're sitting at eye level with a beautiful rose. And you're relaxing your usual grip on thinking of yourself as just occupying your body and the experience of your senses, and even the experience of the image of what you're looking at, or the feel or the smell. You're just allowing all of that to relax. And you're just allowing a state of wonderful openness to revelation of something arising as yet unknown to you that will come from your engagement with this rose. So that's just kind of what you launch this meditation forth with, and then you even let go of the thoughts of that, and you just hang out in that space with the rose for a while. So let's try this. Just be with that rose in your mind. And be open to whatever may arise or whatever you might discover. And feel the gratitude of the rose for your allowing it to enter into this communion with you. And the only way that you could do this is if you have opened your being to a much vaster space of who you are, where there's an accommodation, where there's a space, where there's room to be able to perceive with the subtle senses what's arising from this rose. And then briefly, I'll just share the second way that you could work with this practice. And this would be a much more internal way without a physical object. So this would be, you can pick, this could be coming to the Barzakh, the meeting place with your personal Lord, your unique way of experiencing the divine being, or your personal angel, or you could choose a great being, a master or saint or prophet that you feel an affinity with. And once again, and we'll just do this briefly, you can work with this much more on your own. So set forth an intention that you'd like to commune with whatever you filled the blank with in this inner level. And once again, you enter into a condition of openness, of receptivity, bringing the empty cup waiting to be filled by engaging in this experience. It's what's in between the hyphen in your human divine being, what comes through that gap, what comes through the two sides of the mirror. So just try this for a moment or two. Amen. So now we'll do our sharing part in the middle of this class, and anyone who would like to share from what we've been experiencing, trying to stay right in the present with what you share, what's meaningful, what's coming through right now. And I think we're all on one screen, but I can't see everyone because you don't have your video. So if you want to share something, if you click on participants, and you can click on the little hand by your name, and then when we call on you, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself, and we'd love to hear from you. Or if you have questions about anything that we've shared, that would be fine too.
Munira.
Yes, Munira, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I just want to say that I appreciate the overview again. You know, keep touching on those things, because as we keep revisiting it, the picture gets bigger and bigger and bigger. and then having gone out and practiced, and then the way that you put it back together, the understanding is coming. It's just a beautiful thing to experience. And for me, I've been taking this stuff and using it in my massage practice, and have had some really profound experiences with the clients, you know, because they don't know what's happening, but me inviting their person in the barzak, you know, and then allowing that space for whatever they need to do for their healing, and meeting them there. It's been a really beautiful experience. And I love this idea about the mirror. That's that the bar.
Let me just start with this. So we've, Rabani Ra and I will spend some time before these classes kind of planning an overview of things that we'd like to present. So we're thinking today, again, as we've said, of this is like the aerial view of the big picture of what this is all about. So I'll just briefly describe the different components that we've identified. And the first we've already referred to, becoming a human divine being is an ongoing alchemical process of transformation of our human divine relationship. So that, if when we talk about the Gabrielite work, which this is really coming from what we've been developing for 20 years or more now, if I had to sum up the Gabrielite work, it would be this sentence. I'll read it again. Becoming a human divine being is an ongoing alchemical process of transformation of our human divine relationship. So that's what it's all about. And for this to take place, we need to know, and we've identified some major areas. One is, who are we? We are multidimensional, imaginative, human divine beings with a unique contribution in our relationship with the earth, the capital E. And here earth represents every and any level on which our manifestation or our experience takes place. For there to be this relationship with the divine, there has to be an aspect of our being that is manifest in some realm. Now it's in the physical realm, although we exist on the other realms. After this life, we'll continue to exist in a different realm than this one, still in relationship with the divine. Okay, so we are, once again, multidimensional. We exist on many levels of reality. We are imaginative, human divine beings, each with a unique contribution in the relationship with the earth. And the second, what are we becoming? The two previous series were about birthing the resurrection body, living in the resurrection body. So what are we becoming? We're becoming the resurrection body, which is made of a unique substance called Svarna by the Zoroastrians. And we've talked about Svarna in the past. The resurrection body is something we're creating through our love, through our growth, and through the realization of our desire. So it's always in the process of formation and evolution. It's not this done deal, but it is I would say another way of thinking about the resurrection body, it is the awakened capacity of experiencing and creating of our soul. Just as each of our beings was created so the divine would have a way of knowing him, herself through us, and experiencing existence through us, the resurrection body is the way that our soul can experience in any of the realms on which we exist, and the way in which the divine can experience through the awakened human divine relationship that takes place in this resurrection body.
Can I add to this?
Yeah.
So we are creating the resurrection body, whether we know it or not, in that the things that we accomplish, the things that we synthesize in an alchemical relationship kind of form, or in psychological form, getting over something and learning from that, and all these all produce effects in the resurrection body, or you might say in the part of the barzakh in which we will always live. This creates our eternal environment. And the things that seem like inner things to us who have bodies like these material bodies, we don't see those things. But we can taste those things, and we can experience them in our meditations, and the processes that we go through, as you were saying, these are created as we love, grow, and realize our desires. All of these, you could say, alchemical essences. But the body that we're speaking about is being formed as we speak, and you know, as you feel in your meditations. And when this material body is not here anymore, then that's what we will live in. And it's a kind of living in which there's not especially an inside or outside of this body. It's as they speak about the angels sometimes, that what they see is what they are. It's the whole field is who they are, and that's supposedly our situation in the hereafter. And so when you speak about the resurrection body, we sense it as something that has a certain kind of materiality and a certain kind of dimensionality, but is very different than the way we experience as oppositions in this material world. It is all encompassing kind of thing. But yes, it is something we are creating at all times in this life.
And we could also say the resurrection body is the awakened capacity of our soul to experience from both sides of the mirror, both sides of the barzakh, both sides of the human-divine relationship. So think about that for a moment. The soul has to undergo its own process of awakening to learn to identify with not just what is reflected onto it from the manifest side of its being, but what's reflected onto it from the transcendent side of its being, neither one of which separated from the other, but both of which in relationship with each other. So think about the incredible difference, both in experience and in possibilities, for the soul to realize itself as the unfoldment of what comes together from both sides of the mirror into that new creation which arises at every instant. So that, if I had to give a definition of what does it mean for the soul to awaken, it would be exactly that. And it's a never-ending process. So, who we are, the multidimensional human divine being, what we're becoming, the resurrection body. Okay, sounds great. How do we do it? How do we go about it? Well, the imaginal faculty of the soul, which is unique for each of us, our own particular activity and perfection by which we transform, unite, honor, and illuminate ourselves, others, and the world. We go about it through this, I'd say, co-creative faculty of the soul, being able to engage, lots of hyphens here, in our human divine relationship. So that's how we go about doing this. And we can't just, okay, I see the theory, I'm just going to start doing it. We have to become capable of doing that. We have to develop the component aspects. So stepping back for a moment, we have to first realize that we exist on many levels of reality. We have to awaken the capacity of our subtle senses. We have to awaken the capacity to experience ourselves on those subtle levels of reality. And then we have to learn how to integrate those into a sense of ourself as incorporating all of that. So it's not just this part or that part. And as we've talked about, it's not the human dissolving, so just the divine comes through. It's not the divine dissolving, so there's nothing but the human. It's, once again, it's back to this relationship. And so it takes a lot of time and practice for this to really gel, for a form of understanding to arise from coming at it from many different points of view. And eventually, and I think this is starting to happen for many of you, something begins to click in you. It's like, I'm getting this. I can't quite put it into the usual words, because if you could, you'd probably be coming from just your usual self, but you're feeling something. You're feeling a dynamism. You're feeling a sense of vastness of your being emerging, and then you'll know that you're cooking in the right direction.
And I might add that also it comes from perception of what you might think is coming to you. At least in my case, the feeling that I know that I'm sensing this beauty, like we were just talking about this window and the rose, and things are just so much more connected and beautiful. And so the divine is reaching out to us. So it's really, like you were saying before, it's not just pushing from this side, and it's also much work and hard from, it's really this reciprocal process that, is appreciating and feeling compassion is being extended to us, and then difficulties come up for us, and we're meeting those difficulties the best we can, and then we're feeling appreciation sometimes, or that we're feeling breaking through something, and I'm feeling a mastery like you were talking about. So it really is in relationship that this is being accomplished, rather than just us chalking up something that we have done.
And I just reminded of a part of a traditional hymn that this may give a deeper meaning to. Oh, my soul, it magnifies the Lord and delights in his name. So what does magnifies the Lord mean? Well, in the sense we've been talking about, we've talked about what can come through that barzakh is dependent on the surface area. It's dependent on the degree of awakening that we have achieved in experiencing ourselves as multidimensional beings. So there's much more scope of what can enter into this relationship.
It's expansion. How much expansion?
And what is delights in his name? The usual sense would be, okay, we're here, God's up there, and we're just delighting. Oh God, you're up there. Wonderful. But what is delighting in his name? It's the practice we did earlier. It's delighting in the revelation of divinity that shines through everything that we're experiencing. Not just that, that's pretty darn good, but in his name is us as well, delighting in the way that divinity is shining through us. So it's really taking to heart, in the deep sense of the word, that everything, it said in Hebrew, I think there's 24 letters of the Hebrew alphabet or something like that. And they say that every combination of letters, the permutations, is more than there are electrons in the universe. But they said that every one of those permutations of the letters in the Hebrew alphabet is a unique name of God. Each of us is a unique name of God, an embodiment of a unique mix of qualities. And every one of these is a divine name. Everything is a divine name. Everything is longing to announce its name and its true nature, as are we. And that's what can take place when we awaken to the resurrection body. Well, this gets to the next part of this, and then Ravani Ra has a practice for us. So what are the key elements of this process? Who we are, what we're becoming, how do we go about it? Uniqueness, that it's different for each one of us. The journey of each of our souls is unique. What we have to bring through into existence is unique. Our desire that fuels the process. Our desire that is the transformation of the original divine impulse that created us, the fulfillment of which, the ongoing fulfillment of which is our dharma, is our purpose And it's not a fixed thing. It's not like the desire is sitting there, detailed plans and just go ahead and do this. It's what is continually arising as we awaken even more. And this goes with the purpose behind who we are, what we're doing, the purpose behind how we relate to others, how we relate to circumstances in our life, and the possibilities available in every single kind of relationship that we can have. As I've said before, everything is a potential portal to the sacred. Every relationship, every circumstance, including, and underline this, including the most difficult ones, those are the places of the greatest possible opening to breakthroughs in this human divine creative process unfolding.
All right. So you certainly can feel you can't get there yourself. I can't get there myself. So in the second practice, and I would say we have 3 practices altogether. The third will be given next week. But again, these are kind of the central practices we feel like in this work that can be used for many years. So in this experience, we'll be thinking of that being that we've called before our beloved. Think of the divine. We think of our partner, or inner partner, maybe a batan. And in relationship with this being, we can think of it really as an overlapping of images rather than sitting front to front, so that you feel the being that you're speaking of, this divine being, this dear, close, loving angel, perhaps, right here with you. And at the same time, you are feeling you as this manifest being. And in this, first of all, the compassion of the divine being is evident to you right now. You're feeling such love and concern and appreciation from this divine one, really holding you in their arms and sensing so much received on both sides of this relationship. So close, but still 2 in different manifestations. And this being not only is there for you right now, but also knows about the purpose that you have in this creative faculty that we're speaking, this imaginal creative faculty that you are forming through really those things that you love, through the joy that you have. So in this, I'd like you to experience what this being sees as your own joys. They're perceiving your joys and your interactions in the world that really bring you the most growth, the things that you are, maybe your talents and abilities. And they're sensing it in their own being. It's almost like they see these occasions that you've been using this faculty in your life, even the creations of yours, perhaps, and the discussions you've had that bring out the beauty around you. And they're sensing what it is that you do that is your uniqueness. So feel what they are feeling of you. We'll take a few minutes for this. You're sensing how their energy is changing the more that they're appreciating, taking in. It's really like you're feeding them what it is to be exercising this muscle of the imaginal, challenging yourself sometimes, just having fun sometimes, enjoying things. And they're sensing what it is to be a human, what it is to be accomplishing, what it is to be loving the things that you love. And so they are holding and collecting all of these aspects that together make your imaginal faculty. It's hard for us to focus on what is our faculty, but right now it's just becoming a part of this reflective, compassionate being. You can enjoy them for a little bit longer. And now just allow that appreciation that they're feeling for you, that you have shared this with them, to sink into you. And now just see what happens for a while, being at one with this beautiful being of light. So that's good for now. Maybe you can continue this even in your dreams tonight, perhaps. But I did want you to earmark a little bit here that what our purpose for this was, besides this wonderful opportunity to experience both sides of this being, of your being interfacing with this being, is to take a look at that faculty that we were speaking of and seeing what is it that is strongest in myself and unique to myself that I can keep exercising and enjoying in the service of the divine towards manifestation. Thank you. Mm-hmm.